Hi, I'm Chris with Afflictor Broadheads, and today we're going to talk about what weight broadhead is best for your setup. So, in today's archery climate, there's a lot of talk about momentum and FOC, which there should be. Those are the two most important factors in penetration for sure. But what should you be looking at when you're trying to select a broadhead weight? Let's just say you've already decided whether you're going to shoot a fixed, a mechanical, or a hybrid, and you decided what kind. And now you're looking at what weight should I be getting this broadhead in for my setup? Well, there's a lot of popular choices, of course. You can go from 85 grains to 300 and up pretty easy on a lot of those platforms. So what should you be looking for? Well, of course, you still want to have the best momentum and the best FOC balance for your setup. But one of the most important things to consider is the spine of your arrow. So we have spines in arrows from everything from 150 to 700 plus. And the lower the number, being the stiffer the spine. So if you think of spine as the stiffness of the arrow, the lower the number, the stiffer it's going to be. Now, if you really want to know all the equations that go along with this, draw weight and point weight and arrow speed, there's some great calculators online. In fact, all of the arrow companies have awesome calculators you can look at when you're choosing what spine arrow is for you. And those charts can actually be very critical because they're taking into account everything, including the weight of whatever you have at the front of your arrow. And why that becomes so important is, let's say you have a very weak spined arrow, but you just got done watching a bunch of FOC and momentum videos and you're all jacked up and you run out and you go ahead and find a 175 or 200 grain broadhead to put on an arrow that is underspined, meaning too light. So what that means is the arrow is just light. It's thinnered walled. It's very flexible. You can see that it has a lot of flex to it. This is a light spined arrow. If you put a heavy projectile on the end of this, it weakens the spine. So what happens is, even coming off your riser, it causes so much increased flex that you can actually fracture your arrow. So you want to be sure that your arrow is able to withstand the amount of weight you put up front, whether you're putting it all into a broadhead or you have an insert or an outsert or whatever you've done to get your momentum or FOC up. You want to make sure that the spine of your arrow is correct. So you can see how much bend I can get out of this arrow right here, and this is a 450 spine arrow. If I go down to a 300 spine arrow and I'm putting some heat on it, you can see that I have a lot less bend in this arrow. So the stiffness is a lot greater with the lower number of spine. And again, this is where the arrow spine calculators online are really going to come in handy for you to look at. The last thing you want to do is blow up your arrow. It's a dangerous situation. Plus, you're going to run into all kinds of tuning problems. I think that a lot of the problems people have, especially with fixed blade, is they have an incorrect spined arrow and they're not having consistent flight at all. They're having all these issues downrange, and they want to talk about the broadhead being the issue, which sometimes it certainly can be, but oftentimes it's an incorrect spine setup for your arrow on your bow. If you're still on the fence and trying to decide, you can always keep in mind that it is definitely better to be overspined than underspined, if for nothing else for safety and increased penetration. So if you're starting from scratch, the starting point for me is deciding which broadhead I want to shoot, what grain it's going to be, how much FOC I'm going to have up front, and then matching that to the proper arrow spine. And once you have those factors, it's easy to combine the draw weight of your bow and your speed into a formula to plug into one of the charts online to make sure that you're picking the right spine, because the more you have up front, the more spine you're going to need. Another factor to consider when you're looking at what grain broadhead is, what game are you pursuing? You know, a light skin game like antelope and whitetails and blacktails, you are looking at not requiring a whole lot to get through those animals. So having a lighter broadhead weight at the end is not going to be much of an issue, especially if your arrow is set up properly and you have enough momentum to have complete penetration. Now, if you're looking at African game or big game, of course, there's a lot of recommendations and even requirements in certain provinces, states, and countries of massively heavy arrows and high grain broadheads to increase your momentum and increase your penetration and success. So just a couple things to note. If you're going to be choosing a spine and you're not exactly sure, it's always better to be overspined than underspined. And you need to keep in mind, the more weight you have at the end of your arrow, whether it's a broadhead, insert, outsert, or any combination, the stiffer your spine is going to need to be. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, just drop us in the comments or give us a call or email at any time.